Kia ora koutou, welcome to this week's live. So it's Friday, hopefully you're finishing off for the week. I'm about to finish off for the week too. It is well past wine o'clock, although for me this weekend, after last weekend, no wine o'clock. I'm actually going away tomorrow on a health weekend, so I've decided to start early and kick that in Friday. It's been a busy week, but a good week, and I'm feeling good as well. And I'm heading up to Auckland tomorrow, and I know that the weather's not been so good, and it always makes me laugh when I pack and go to Auckland. And I was chatting to a friend up there, and last week I flew back from Auckland into Wellington, and we had to have 2 attempts at landing. I think the gusts were 130 k's. It was windy. And that brings me to my topic for this week: perspective. Because what we often see through our own eyes is obviously our own perspective, but we see that as real, as the truth, as our reality. And often it's handy to look from other people's perspectives. So yes, I'm talking weather, yes, I'm talking the Wellington-Auckland difference, but it's bigger than that. So when I was at the Women in Leadership Symposium last week, a lot of the people on stage who talked about the struggles that they'd overcome had had a trauma in their life, a rough time, a tough upbringing. There'd been something that had ignited this fire in their belly to keep going, some adversity that they'd had to overcome. And when we think about the things that stress us, the things we've had to overcome, the difficulties in our life, there's nothing like a bit of perspective from somebody else that's having it worse. And I think when we look at people that have been, that have grown up without parents, that have suffered abuse, that have been in abusive relationships, have been raped when they were young, all the stories that we hear about people's adversities that they've faced, that they've overcome, it gives us some perspective. And I remember when I was back in the UK earlier this year for my grandmother's funeral, she'd written a lot of poetry, and I was reading through that when I was back there earlier this year, and she'd written a poem on how great the washing machine was as an invention. And this is something that I think about now every time I go and put my washing in the machine. And it's something that I think we take for granted. When you don't have that perspective, as with everything, we tend to take it for granted. And where we also take that perspective for granted, I think, is in our striving, in our push for more. So I'm real guilty of this, and this is something, despite teaching others, I constantly have to remind myself that a lot of the time when we're striving, we want to reach our goals, we're working hard, we're trying to get to the next thing. And then when we get there, it's on again to the next thing. We continue striving, and we don't often stop and pause and get that perspective that shows us how far we've come, and that perspective that shows us that we've actually done well, because we can get so caught up in, I need more, I need more, I need more, I should be doing better, I need the next thing, now I've got this, it's on to this. And it's easy when we look through those lenses to feel like we've not done enough, or we're not getting far enough along in terms of our goals, our to-do list, whatever we're looking at. When we step back and get that perspective and realize how far we've come, we start to notice, well, it's not about having to get there to be successful. It's recognizing that we're already doing it and we already are being successful. And yes, it's great to be ambitious and push for more, but not without that perspective of, one, being grateful for all the things that we have had and the milestones that we've reached, but also recognizing the success that we've had as well, because I know from personal experience it's an easy trap to get caught into. And similarly, when we're stressing over things, when life gets tough, having some perspective around that, I think, is also really useful, because quite often the things we make big in our own mind, in our own lives, in the context of the world, other people's lives, it's often not as big as we make it. And particularly when we're in a world where stress is such a big thing and something that so many of us suffer from, it's worth bearing that in mind and having that perspective. So those are the thoughts that I want to leave you with for this week. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll catch up again next week. Mā te wā.